We call in comments from, may we have comments from our reactors? We have two reactors present this afternoon. The first one that we are going to call in is an Executive Director of Soil and Water Conservation Foundation Incorporated. Please help me welcome Mr. William G. Granert.
Thank you. One of the interesting things about this, it's a little different tact that's usually taken for disaster risk management or preparedness, and that's using something that doesn't happen as frequently as our typhoons or even our El Nino. So I think to me it makes it much more important that if we can do it for something where it doesn't happen as often, it'll be easier to prepare for those things that happen on a regular basis. Like we know the typhoons are coming, we're going to get maybe 15, 20 a year. Right now we're blessed with rain. The El Nino is coming. The average, from what I understand now, is from 1 to 10, it's dropped to 1 to 2 every 2 years. Somewhere in the Philippines is affected by El Nino. The interesting thing, let me ask a question here. Could those people who are from a municipal or city government raise their hand? Raise your hand if you're from a city, or I know Talisay is here, I heard that, and Naga. Take a look at the population or percentage of the audience. One of my major problems that I have is, what is the priority? Because if the local government officials do not have or place a priority on your management of risks or preparedness, it's not going to happen. And I think you can see by the audience, there are only a few towns and cities here that are represented that felt this is important enough in order to send somebody here. So that's the first point of the thing. So I congratulate those of you who are from municipal governments. I congratulate you for being here by thinking this is important enough to send somebody here to listen to what they have. Two mayors here. Okay, so very good. So we'll vote for you next time if you're running for.
Yeah, we're gonna campaign.
Okay. From my experience, most people don't understand geology, let alone earthquakes. So I think this is a very nice beginning presentation to give you a little background in it so that you have a better understanding of what actually happens during an earthquake. I was in Manila in 1990 when they had the big earthquake, and I was on my hands and knees because I couldn't stand up. And we were worried that the electric wires were going to come down, because we're a lot of people. So when we have something like a 7.2, it's not so bad, I think, as far as being, except if you're right on top of it, that's different. I have a number of friends that work with scenario modeling for climate change. And I think this is the first time I've heard about it for earthquakes. And I think it's a very, very important idea, because if we cannot imagine what it's going to be like, we're not going to worry about it. So if we can come up with ways of creating the scenario of what would happen, whether if we'd gotten hit by Yolanda instead of in Tacloban in northern Cebu, we would be talking, I guess they had about, what, 250,000 people in Tacloban, and here we'd have 2.5 million that would have been affected. That would have been a whole different story, the thing. But I would assume here that the people were not any more prepared here than they were in Tacloban, and Tacloban was warned. The floods they had in Cagayan de Oro, they were told 3 years before that this is the area it's going to flood, and you're going to have a big storm. And the local government officials laughed at it. So 3 years later, how many people were injured or killed, and how many businesses and houses went because they did not take the precautions that they could have taken well in advance of what happened. So I think one of the most important things here that was brought up is that you have to deal with education. My first priority for education would be your local government unit heads. Because if they do not understand it or put importance on it, it's not going to be pushed. No matter how well the people under the local leader want to do it, if the priority is not at the top, it doesn't happen. So that's the first thing, is whether we have to create an intensive training course for all mayors and governors, and maybe even board members, so that they understand at least the basics of it. You can have all the programs that you want, and we have a very good one put down here, very simple steps. And I think some of the questions that were asked of the audience are whether, do you have an earthquake preparedness program for your home? And I don't think anybody raised their hand here. And only a few people raised for their businesses. I know right now I think schools are required to practice and put into things, but most of it, as they say, is written down. And what happens is that you write it down and you put it away in your notebook and you forget to practice it, because if you don't practice it, you don't know where to go. And I've run into this in local areas. We work with barangays that were affected by the earthquake, and we asked them, did you know what to do? And they said no. They were not prepared for an earthquake. We asked them, would you be prepared for a typhoon, a very strong one? I said, where would you go as an individual in your barangay? And they usually said they would head for the strongest house, or what they thought was the strongest house, which may or may not be in the safest location. So at the local level, the preparedness is not happening. I know Bohol, because I work with the provincial government, they have very good maps for the municipal level, but when we ask them, can you show me the barangay maps which overlay the hazards for the municipal area, they didn't have it. They're working on it now. So we have to bring the preparedness, whether it's earthquake or typhoon or drought, we have to bring it down to the individual porok level, because otherwise we're going to have problems going on. I'm glad that it was mentioned that we have to have emergency response teams, because we don't have enough good people that are trained in emergency response. And I think the biggest benefit of this is that it's not only earthquakes that these people could respond to, it's fires, it's floods, it's typhoons, it's landslides, it's all a major disaster. If you have core people that are trained in basic first aid, maybe it's just 5 or 6 people in a barangay that know basic first aid and can apply it as your first responders into a real emergency situation while you were waiting for everything else to fall into place. There was one statistic there that it was the cost of the typhoon damage in Mindanao. I don't know if many of you saw it. It was the peso value. And we're talking hundreds of billions of pesos just for one typhoon. Now I'll ask the audience this question. Where is your local government going to get the money to pay for a disaster? Because right now you have your total income minus the graft, and whatever is left over, that's what you actually have to spend. But anyway, the thing is, the Philippines cannot afford to have 2 or 3 major disasters a year and pay for it. So the better prepared we are, the less is going to be the cost of rehabilitating it after that disaster happens, because Yolanda, I'm afraid, was only the beginning. There are going to be more storms like this with the thing, and hopefully it will not be as up to 310 kilometers an hour. That's a super tornado in the United States, I think, for the thing. They are an F5 classification. Only it's over thousands of square kilometers, not an area that's 5 kilometers wide. So I think we need more forums like this, but concentrating on local leaders to begin with. And we need more information. One of the interesting things that I looked at was that just the questionnaire to tell whether your house, what a nice piece of equipment. If we can get that out to every household here and then have the barangays collect it, it's something that I assume would take maybe 15 minutes, something like that to fill out. Certainly we can spend 15 minutes to find out whether our house is safe and then try to make the repairs with the thing if necessary. So altogether, I took the numbers down for the IEC materials because I'm sure there has a lot, but it's not distributed to a wide range of groups that we need. So maybe what we can hear, the academic community here can act to get this material out, especially DepEd and all of your schools from elementary on up. Because the education is going to start with the little kids. It's not going to be the adults. You've got to bring it all the way up down to the lowest level so that then those people grow up and whatnot. They make better decisions than we are in disaster preparedness. Okay, so I thank our speaker here for a very interesting presentation. And I don't want to go to Kobe and be involved in that kind of a typhoon or a kind of earthquake and whatnot. You can leave that in Japan. Hopefully it will not happen here.
Hopefully.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gunner. Most of us Filipinos would always think of our homes as our comfort zone. That is probably the reason why we don't conduct drills in our homes, because it is considered as our comfort zone. However, our homes could be where we find the most vulnerable sector of our society. This could be our children, or those could be the elderly. So probably we should shift our minds that we should start at home in conducting any contingency measures or drills for any disaster. Our second reactor is coming from the Cebu PDRRM office. He is also the head of Task Force Paglikon. This is the task force created after or to respond on Typhoon Yolanda. Please help me welcome Mr. Baltazar Baltz Tribunalo Jr.
Mayong hapon atong tanan. Diri lang ko, Mr. Rene Solido, diri lang ko sir. Rainfall advisory number 3, light to moderate with occasional heavy rains over Cebu, Bohol, Siquijor, and Northern Negros Oriental will continue from 3 to 4 hours, Pag-asa and OCD7. As per verbal advice by Director Tapada of Pag-asa Visayas, Northern Cebu and Cebu City is under signal number 1. Concerned local government units and national government agency to take precautionary actions. Very simple way of doing the warning, but it's very powerful. It's good to see Mr. Director Rene, not in a disaster, because before, many years ago, we were together in disaster response now when I was assigned in Manila. And most often, the disaster risk reduction and management practitioners meet immediately after disasters and during capacity building. This is a very good opportunity. I'd like to thank RAFI for this very good series. We are now in the 4th series. And I hope that there will be a resilience series, that it will be it will become as a kind of way of life for this center. Meaning, fourth series is not enough. There has to be a continuing education. Regarding the hazards which was identified a while ago, there were lots of warnings, no? I've been in Pakistan, I've been in China, I've been in Aceh after the big tsunami, 2 or a week after as emergency responder, and have seen thousands of people die. There is always one lesson learned. Where was education before such disaster happened? And it was greatly emphasized by Mr. Solido, our director. Where was education, or where is education, and where will be education? I appreciated that it was mentioned a while ago that there has to be an institutional capacity building, and that institution should be the government. I think many of you have read the newspaper 2 days ago that we shared the list of all local government units. How prepared are they? How is DRR mainstream? Like, may grado yun na, no? Ang uban grado 40, ang uban 2, ang uban may grado. I would like to congratulate Mayor Alan Adlawan. He's here. Mayor, salamat kayo. Mayor Adlawan is having a good grade, no? Ikumpara sa uban. Mayor, do you know that? You have good grade? It's very objective. Asam na mo gikuha. RAFI, with our Cebu program, that is a kind of participation with the provincial government, doon ay scorecard. The scorecard director is like a kind of transparent process na asa man ta. I'm just looking, no, at the side of the resilience component of that our Cebu program. Do you have organized local disaster risk reduction and management office? If you have the office, do you have an officer? If you have the officer, do you have the plan, the DRM plan? If you have the DRM plan, do you have specific budget to that? And do you have drills, do you have simulation? And at the same time, do you have good practice in terms of building resilience? So what we are talking now, when you talk about institutionalization, this is not just a matter of the cerebral process. Dili lang kutob na nahuna, nasabtan, kundi dili lang sa pulong, kundi apil usab sa buhat. Nangay yun natong buhaton. My point here is, dapat walang kumpiyansa. When I saw thousands of people lying dead in every disasters that I went in different parts of this country or of this world, nga akong konsensya mao gini. Kung ipangutan natin ni Director kaganina, ikaw Jollibee, ikaw RAFI, o ikaw Cebu City, o ikaw naman si Mayor Dennis Asturias, o kinsa pang usa ka Mayor? Sir! Suskinuto, sir. Ganawan rin mamis kandingan na niya itong sa simana. And the main topic of that kandingan is disaster. Ang pangutana is, unsa man ta kaandam. Ug ang kaandam na to is, it has to be translated into action. Mr. Granite, we have 5% of the internal revenue allotment based on the Republic Act 10-121. We have the money. We have the money. Why I said we have the money? Because all the local government unit, kung tapuo na to atong kwarta, perting nakuha. And it was proven after Yolanda. Dako-dako gitong kwartaha, ang taga-South ni-respond sa North, ang taga-Central Cebu ni-responde dito sa North. I personally saw Mayor Adlawan and the mayors, the League of Mayors, no, there is a Cebu chapter nag-responded. There are lots of money, and not only in Cebu, but there are also other provinces responding. Ang earthquake, delikado kayo. Dili gyud siya kakumpensahan. My concern, Director, is how can we ensure that the technical side of the hazards that was identified as far as the earthquake is concerned, how will you help us in terms of technical transfer? Meaning, kadtong gidro between Balamban, Toledo, Cebu City, and there are southern towns. Ang ako is unsaon man ato gyud siya nga masabtan sa mga mayor. Sorry kay Mayor sa Alcoy ha, Mayor. So apil gyud ang Alcoy in town nato. Ako kayong liki dito sa Alcoy. Unsaon man siya masabtan sa inato, meaning it has to be localized. When you say localized, dapat specific yung kayo ang hazard. A hazard map remains a paper kung dili ta maghimog vulnerability assessment. Pag nagingon ni director na elements at risks, not just the person but the livelihood, infrastructure, all the institution that will be affected, specific yun na siya, no? So, very glad to kay ang Governor, DRR, climate change adaptation, environmental protection, mamayang top priority of the SIC agenda niya, nalipay kay ko niya na, no? And in fact, we allocated somehow a good amount. For the next year, of course, from IRA, doon natay 117 million for the 2015 and it will be increased no by 2016. We work on that budget. Ug unsaon na siya, it is more on the capacity building. More capacity building and more capacity building. So, Director, our match or our counterpart is we will have this community-based disaster risk management and somehow really enforce no whatever ang engineering, ang design, ug uban pang mga gimbuhaton. The NGO, RAFI is a giant NGO here. Ako kay katabang namo, they're helping us. So again, ako lang i-emphasize nga magtinabang we have to help each other. Thank